Start this real quick. There we go. I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Not too bad. If you see me grimace or anything, I'm having back spasms right now, which is why I'm
Oh,
at home.
yeah.
So if you see me look like I'm going through it a little bit, I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, I totally get that. I just destroyed my back. First day I got on campus, I decided to deadlift a little too much, so that was a fun introduction to college for me for sure.
Damn freshman trying to do the thing on the first day. That's normal.
Oh yeah. Do way too much the first 2 weeks. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just basically wanted to it's for an exercise science project. I needed to find someone to email, so I reached out to Zach Elder because obviously, and I worked with all the max strength guys, Twangy and Zach, and I worked with them for a while. So
Cool.
I feel like he'd be a pretty sweet guy to connect and interview for sure.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm happy to help any way I can.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so first question kind of is how did you get into coaching and how did you decide that that was the career you wanted to pursue? Because I did a little bit of research that said you majored in psychology, so I'm wondering kind of how did you decide that like coaching was kind of the thing you wanted to do?
Yeah, so kind of a runaround. I started as a PT major. Realized really quick with the requirements to get into
Yeah,
PT school that I probably wasn't going to have after my first semester, second semester. I wasn't doing the best in the classroom, and I definitely wasn't sitting at a 4.0 the way that everybody else was that had gotten into UND's PT school. So I kind of kicked around a few things, and I kind of went the psychology route just because I feel like I've always appreciated and tried to leverage that type of thinking from everything I've done, learning how to learn, understanding like the psychological components to everything. And obviously being an athlete was a huge part of that. And I kind of had fallen in love with sports psych stuff, which then led me to doing all my research in sports psych through my undergrad and with some Ken Reviza stuff, which was obviously like kind of like kind of bursting onto the scenes at the time, especially when I was in like high school, late like 2008. There's some ESPN specials and stuff done on it, and I kind of fell in love with that, and then I kind of like started to figure out after I got hurt right before I got to college that I really wanted to probably end up coaching at the end of my career just because my dad coached high school hockey. He actually just retired. I think he coached for 43 years. Just saw the impact that he had on people um, and how he his former players spoke about him and the impact that he had as a high school coach. And I always thought that was super cool. And having played college athletics, I knew I had an upper hand into getting into college. I didn't necessarily love the idea of coaching high school stuff. So I
yeah,
kind of had a little bit of a pathway to be able to do that in college and kind of chase what my dad did. And things have kind of fallen into place, a lot of dumb luck, a lot of good connections and stuff, and kind of helped me get to where I'm at now. But I just kind of started as a little bit of like, well, I'm not going to play forever.
yeah,
And it's kind of led me here.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's awesome because I feel like that was yeah doing my research and stuff. I'm just wondering kind of how did you decide that this is where I wanted to do for ideally the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a like I said, it's kind of an accident. I always enjoyed hockey growing up. Like that was my big thing, obviously, with my dad's background as well. And then it just kind of led to, obviously playing baseball and feeling really comfortable with, the things that were kind of coming down the pipeline as far as like player development and stuff like that. And I actually got the my opportunity to start coaching at St. Cloud State
Yeah,
in college and kind of took it from there.
yeah, for sure. And then how did you get noticed by the Yankees and how did they deem that you were kind of like a pro level coach? Like how did they kind of see you and be like, this guy is because for players it's easy, you throw 97, you hit 500 in college, right? But like how do you decide that like a coach is good enough to coach at the pro
Yeah, I
level?
think I think it's a combination of a lot of things. My initial connection with the Yankees, our director and is still our director of pitching here,
Hmm.
was my pitching coach with the St. Cloud Rocks in 2015 when I first when I was still playing.
Hmm.
Um, and I made that connection, stayed in touch. I was always a big fan of his, and had an admiration for the way that he thought and the way that he went about his business. And when I got into coaching, he was my biggest mentor. He gave me a lot of time a day to call and lean on him every chance I got to. I needed him when I was at St. Cloud or when I moved on to Nyack. He was always there and helped me, work through some of these new things and all the new technology, new training modalities, all these different things. And
Yeah.
he was a rock star for me. And then I was in my second fall at Nyack when he got the job with the Yankees. He had left Driveline at that time, and I reached out and congratulated him, and he said, "Stay by the phone. There's probably something coming down the pipeline." And I think the one thing that he's always told me, the reason why I was a good fit for what we were trying to do is he was looking for people that were like obsessive problem solvers. Like we, to this day, we don't try to hire for who the guy is right now. We try to figure out where that person's going to be in 4 or 5 years. And um, being a high level problem solver, being somebody that is insatiable and wants to learn, um, is really what you're after. And I think he saw that in me being young, being able to at the time go down to the Dominican Republic was my first job with the Yankees, and coach at the academy down there. So um, I think it was like I said, it was a lot of combination of things, some dumb luck, some good connections, some good people, and I got the opportunity and kind of ran with it at the time, but it really wasn't ever something that I saw as possible. Probably, when I first started out coaching, having not played pro ball, and being, at a small Division 1, I never really thought it was a really a possibility for me. But when it came across the pipeline, I was pretty excited about it, obviously.
For sure. And would you say that's how a lot of the is it still kind of how a lot of these organizations are run, or is that kind of just like a Yankees thing, where it's like we're looking for people that with that sort of work ethic, problem solving, or is there kind of other stuff that people are looking for when hiring
Yeah, I
coach?
think I think it's again, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's what you're able to bring to the table, what kind of coach you are, what kind of person you are,
Mhm.
success you've had in the past, and what you've been given, um, as far as resources and stuff where guys come from colleges or facilities. But I just think it's a pro ball is that kind of that combination of like having a skill set, having the feel, being able to work with high level players, being able to manage those types of personalities and obviously be able to take in a ton of information and use the resources that your org has for you. And obviously that's a big spectrum of, from top to bottom,
Yeah,
from the least amount of resources to the most amount of resources. There's still a ton of resources in professional baseball, and being able to handle those things, decipher those, and be able to bring them to players and be like a conduit to give it to players, I think is something that people are always looking to do. And I think that's what we do at a really good rate. And I think that's what most orgs are looking for is being
sure.
that avenue to be able to help players out with an insane amount of resources.
For sure. And this got a follow-up question to that. I'll touch back with this later, but do certain organizations or do certain coaches kind of value philosophies, or is it more of like a holistic thing? Or how do you deal with coaches that kind of are have a certain philosophy, certain thought of mind about something? Some guys think rotation, some guys think extension, you know what I mean? Or like, different things like that. Do certain coaches are kind of tied to that, and are certain organizations also tied to those sort of philosophies?
Yeah, I'll speak for what I know. I think being able to take all the pieces to the puzzle and be able to put them together. I think everybody's looking for the same thing. We want to obviously win a World Series and chase that. And obviously you got to have, better than average big league players to do that.
Yeah,
And I think I think what good coaches do is they take the incredible amount of information, be able to break that down and what the individual needs in order to get better and be able to narrow that down and like this is the lowest hanging fruit that we have right now to make that individual better and make an impact on their career and then being able to run with that. I don't necessarily think that when coaches are hired you're looking for like one little niche that guys
yeah,
can really exploit. I think you have to be able to be a little bit of a chameleon and be able to solve a lot of different things at a high level. And obviously, like I said, it starts with taking in the information and being able to break that down
Yeah.
and decipher that for the player because it's a lot for the players to deal with. We got to be able to make that as simple as humanly possible for them to be able to digest it.
Yeah, for sure. And then my next question is, what does your job kind of fully entail compared to a regular pitching coach?
Um, so being, ooh, ouch, there was the spasm.
Yeah.
Um, my job on a I guess daily, weekly basis, monthly basis is just looking at things from like a 30,000 foot view. Being somebody that's not, boots on the ground every day with, specific teams, being able to oversee our processes, our systems, um, pitch counts, different things like that, being able to keep those at the forefront of what my day to day looks like, and then being able to travel into to affiliates. So I'll travel usually 2, 3 weeks out of the month. And even when I'm not traveling, I'm still in Tampa and going into our complex where our rookie ball team is, and spending time in the Dominican Republic, spending time up in New York, New Jersey, and then with our low A team here in Tampa as well. So a lot of that, it's coaching coaches, it's doing one-on-one meetings with them every week, being able to get with Sam, our director, and being able to make sure we're not having anything fall between the cracks and
Yeah.
continue to build things out that helps make our coaches' lives easier. And that's a big range of things that we can do, but that's pretty broad scale what we do every day. And then once the games start at night, then it's watching the games, making sure that the coaches have any questions, if we have to make roster moves, all those different types of things. Those are kind of at the forefront of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then kind of stack those weeks and months together and plan your trips and keep it moving.
Yeah, for sure. So almost kind of like a middleman almost kind of is
Yeah.
what the upper wants to say to these guys, and then anything you see, obviously, kind
Yeah,
of,
I think a lot of it's just oversight and making sure that we're coaching coaches. It's way less player facing.
yeah,
It's much more time, helping them. Hey, we got a question. This guy's delivery looks a little off to me. Something's not quite right.
yeah.
Bouncing some of those questions off of us, pitch design questions, workload questions,
Mhm.
um, analytical questions. I mean, there's a multitude of things that they can come to us with, and sometimes we bring it to them, and sometimes we're um, helping be able to problem solve some things on the ground floor for them so that they can go execute better as coaches.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of already covered a little bit of this, but I got a little second part to it. But kind of how do organizations like the Yankees evaluate, your coach's performance? So kind of like what you're doing, how do you evaluate how these coaches are doing? And then yeah, basically that. How do you evaluate if a coach is being successful or not?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a proprietary question in some ways, but like more of a broad answer to that would just be like, are we getting guys better? Are we improving year over year? Are we improving at the things that we need to do? Are we checking the box on
Mhm.
some objectives and things that we know that this individual needs to get better to be able to push them through to being an impact big leaguer and like being able to track like what the player is doing and what is our process to help that
Yeah,
individual player is really what we're evaluating. It's more granular than that, but it's really like that's the crux of what we're doing is that we're just making sure that they're having a direct impact on our players in a big way, and um, helping them do that is part of what we do as well.
yeah, for sure. And then next, how did you kind of learn what you learned about pitching? How did you develop that? Like I know you said more holistic, but almost like philosophy, or how did you learn what you believe in for
It's a good
pitching?
question. Taking all of the things that you see around you, there's a ton of resources that are free to the public to be able to digest and um, take in what you believe in as far as like, pitch design stuff and using Fangraphs and Baseball Savant
Mhm.
and a lot of those types of things, like what stuff plays, what helps guys be successful, and some of those things you can't run from, like velocity is good,
Mhm.
but so is command.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of things that are, kind of like no-brainers.
yeah,
But then it comes down to being able to use those resources that you have available to you, or some are behind a paywall and you got to go chase it. but I think it's just continually chasing the results on the field is the only thing that matters. Like, what is actually going to get you those results, and being able to um, use the resources in order to chase the development plans in which that are you're actually going to attack those things that really do matter. And I think that's kind of a broader way to look at it. And then you get into different places. You're at St. Cloud State, you're at Nyack, you're at, with the Yankees, you're at different levels with the Yankees. And I think it's just continually
Mhm.
sharpening that Rolodex of things that, work and don't work. And this information is good. This information we could probably do without. Um, but constantly learning within that. And the thing I will always say to people is that what I felt I was really confident and really good at, or that this thing that I was like super firm in even like 2 years ago, a lot of that's changed. Like it's an ever if you're doing the same thing you were two years ago, you're probably not learning quick enough. And those things continue to evolve and reshape themselves. But keeping your North Star and making sure that you know that the results on the field and what you're chasing from what leads to success, what leads to wins, what hopefully leads to championships is ultimately the
Yeah.
thing that you're chasing itself.
For sure. And you also, once again, sort of touched on this a little bit, but how did you kind of sort? Because obviously, like you said, there's a tons of information out there. There's everything. How did you kind of sort out a lot of the extra stuff? How do you see something be like, probably not going to look at that, probably not going to weigh that too much, whatever that is. How do you decide what's
I,
valuable and what's not?
I think a lot of it's just trial and error. Like you got to figure out what matters to you.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of ways to look at, development as a whole, pitching, hitting, what have you. But um, you have to be able to sift through that and try things. Like you can't just be stuck on something that you haven't tried. I think you have to like go chase something and try to see if it works. And if even if that specific thing doesn't work, is there a variation of that does work? And um, I think that's probably the best way to go about it, just because there are things that are non-negotiable, but all those little extra edges that you can chase in order um, to try to make that, above average impact big leaguer, I think is like ultimately that's where you get it is in those margins. And I think that's what you have to be able to keep in your foresight.
For sure. And then next, like mentality wise, what's the biggest difference you've seen through your whole coaching experience between kind of high school, college pro pitchers and even like lower to higher level pro pitchers, especially? What's kind of the difference in mentality you see there?
The obsession with it, especially as you get closer to the big leagues, um, the guys that professional baseball a lot of times is a little bit of an war of attrition just because um, health and longevity and things like that are a necessity in order to get your shot to pitch in the big leagues and be a part of that. And um, you look at the guys in the upper levels and um, the guys at the upper levels of the minor leagues, like those guys, their routines, the way they handle themselves, the way they treat their recovery, the way they treat um, their nutrition, their hydration, their sleep, like they're obsessive about it. Their routines are insanely well done. They treat everything as if it's the most important day, and that's what you really notice. That's what really stands out. The guys that make it, and there's always those outliers that don't
Yeah.
fit that norm. You play with them in high school, college, you coach them, but the vast majority of the guys that have those special careers or are on that special trajectory is not an accident, and they're
Yeah,
they're uh, they're very intentional about what they do.
for sure. For sure. And then what is the difference in kind of outside training for the minor leagues? Like whether that's strength, mobility, are you doing velo programs? Obviously it's professional baseball, so probably not quite as much, but kind of what's the difference between upper and lower professional baseball?
There's not a whole lot. I mean, we treat our minor league system from the Dominican all the way up to AAA, and we treat that as it's still the minor leagues. Like you're still not a big leaguer, you're still not where you want to be long
Yeah.
term, and if that's where you want to go, like the attention to the development side of things has to stay the exact same. And so there's not a whole lot of differences. Like you're still checking the box on the things that you need to do. Do you need to throw hard? Do you need to throw more strikes? Do you need to throw more quality strikes? How are the pitch shapes? Um, what our usages, all those things. That is a constant conversation
Mhm.
from the Dominican 16, 17-year-old international signings to up in AAA where you got guys with service time that are waiting for their opportunity. And so it doesn't look that different. I know it might sound a little bit
Yeah.
wonky, but it doesn't look that crazy different. And I think, keeping the development at the forefront of what you're trying to do, no matter where you're at in the minor leagues, because you're not where you want to be, is it's an absolute necessity.
Yeah. And so kind of to go off that, so how do you deal with guys who like, let's say for example, you have a guy you really want to do a certain drill and he's like, I'm not doing that. Or it's like you want to do a plyo drill, I don't do plyos. You know what I mean? Or kind of how do you deal with that sort of stuff and work around what each of the individual guys believe or how they think they move?
Yeah, I think that's part of what like the art of coaching is
Mhm.
finding a way to get the result you want, get the adjustment that you want, but also abiding by the things that the player wants because especially as you get into higher level baseball, the the player has more opinion because they've gone through things more. They understand themselves more. They have more of a Rolodex of what they're actually trying to um, emulate. And so I think that that's a big piece of what our coaches face is trying to make sure that they're meeting that player exactly where they're at to be able to give them what they need. And um, we don't force anything on anybody. If the guy wants to do it, we're obviously that's if something is brought to the table, that's usually the first order of business. But if they don't want to, or if they have their idea of what they want it to look like we're more than amenable to get that done and try to find a different route to be able to come to an agreement to help them obviously get to where we need to get to. And um, I think that's where you win the most. I think that's where you get the biggest amount of buy-in is the player obviously understands that we're
Yeah.
our paychecks say the same and we're trying to accomplish the exact same thing. So coming to that common ground and being able to run through that wall together, I think is a necessity.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And this next question I feel like has been answered a little bit, sort of, but kind of from organization to organization or just in general, when you're evaluating, college or high school prospects, is there certain things that you or other organizations value more? Like, do some value velocity a lot more? Some guys value stuff a lot more? I know some like I've heard before, some places value, efficiency and mechanics because they feel like they can build off that the most, or kind of how has that changed between each spot?
Yeah, I think it just depends on like what the coach is, especially like if you're a college recruiting, like what do you feel the most comfortable developing? Do you feel really comfortable developing stuff? Do you feel comfortable developing velocity and whatever? And like whatever that comes to, and then being able to go get that in the recruiting process is a necessity. Now, as far as like pro ball goes, um, that's I think really like individualized by the org. What do they value? What do they want to try to acquire to be able to help those guys the best? And I think we have a decent system with we have a good relationship with our amateur scouting and what we're trying to accomplish and what we're looking for. I won't say much more than that,
Yeah, sure.
um, but yeah, I think in college, when I coached in college, it was always um, like, hey, what do we feel comfortable developing, and then being able to bring that person in that doesn't currently have that, but
Yeah,
has a good delivery, has really good shapes, throws a ton of strikes. Like, what do you feel like you can develop, and then just go get everything but
yeah,
that, and then be able to bring them in and go chase that. I think that's what we did at NIAC specifically
yeah,
through a couple of recruiting classes there, and they obviously had some really good years. And Herg, the head coach there when I was there, was a rock star at that, and he felt like he could develop velocity and some stuff. And we signed a bunch of guys just threw a ton of strikes that were good athletes. Like that's what our thing was at NIAC. And then we had a lot of guys that threw really hard and then got some good opportunities at some ACC schools and things of that nature. And Herg was the driving force behind all that, and he had a really good eye for what he was trying to go get.
yeah. And where's he at now? Because I've heard a lot of
He's
things.
the director of pitching with the Phillies.
Okay, well, okay, there
Yeah,
you go. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. But
yeah.
you would say there's definitely difference between organization to organization of what they're looking for. It isn't let's go get the best pitcher we can find. You'd say there's definitely certain things they're looking for.
Yeah, I think so. Now, how much of that is driven by scouting? How much is driven by player development? Like who's voice in the room? Um, Obviously, the scouting department is the people that are making those decisions. But how much does PD have a say in those things? I think that really varies from org to org. I think that's it. Um, it definitely feels like that is the case.
Mhm. For sure. And then kind of final question here that I got. What's the best advice you'd have for freshmen like myself or just any freshmen in college playing sports or baseball specifically?
Get uncomfortable and just go sell out. Like you got one chance at your career.
Mhm.
Like you got one opportunity to play this game for a long time and at some point somebody's going to tell you you're not good enough.
Mhm.
Like don't wait until that's hanging in the balance um before you start to kick the pedal down because a lot of times it's too late at that point.
Yeah,
And you've given away precious time. There's a lot of time in life to to go have fun and uh to be a college student and drink beer with your buddies. But there's one opportunity to be a college baseball player and high school baseball player, like to try to reach your ultimate goal of whatever that is for
yeah,
that individual. I think you need to sell out and chase it and be obsessive about it because um, time time doesn't wait for anybody, and I think that needs to be the most important thing. If that's what you want to do, then your actions have to mirror that.
for sure. Sure. Well, thank you, man. That's all I got. I really appreciate you for taking the time out to do
Yeah,
this
of course.
with me.
Are you writing a paper or
I
what's your
need to
plan?
do I need to do an interview for this interview's professional in a field.
Okay,
Sure.
cool.
I'll reach out to Zach and see what names he's got for me. Send me like 20 names and I just all right.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
sure.
All
Yeah.
right, man. Well, yeah, if you got any other questions or whatever, don't hesitate to shoot a text. But
Yeah.
you got practice today?
Yeah, I got practice at let's see 2:15 here. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you tell Cole Fuker that tell him that he's still as ugly as I remember. My coach Cole when Cole was a ninth grader.
Okay, yeah. No, that guy's awesome. I've loved having him so far. For
Good.
sure.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, good luck with your freshman year. Hopefully, stay away from the deadlifts for a little bit longer, but
Yeah, for sure.
if you need
Yeah.
anything, don't hesitate to reach
All
out,
right,
man.
perfect. Yeah, thank you so
All
much.
right. We'll see you.
Bye.